Thanks for standing by and welcome to the Biogene Technology Market Update webinar and Q&A. All participants are in a listen-only mode. There will be a presentation lasting for approximately 10 or 15 minutes, followed by Q&A. If you have a question that you'd like to submit, please feel free to type it in using the Q&A function within Zoom. Please note the session is being recorded. On behalf of Biogene today, we have the CEO and Managing Director, Tim Grogan. I'll hand it over to Tim. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Matt, and welcome everybody to this update webinar on the back of the news that we released last week. It's an opportunity for us to update current and new shareholders on recent developments and also dig into the background of the interesting US Department of Defense announcement. Last week, we picked up over 70 new shareholders as a result of that announcement, so I'd also like to welcome any of the new shareholders joining us for the first time today. As Matt said, just a brief presentation today, and for those of you new to the company, I guess the key points is that we're developing two new active compounds as insecticides derived from a particular type of Eucalyptus cluesiana that's grown in Northern Australia. And the exciting aspect for us is it's not only derived from nature, but we have demonstrated new modes of action, which is particularly important in the world of insecticides where there's a lot of resistance built up to current compounds. We have large target markets around agriculture, public health and consumer, and now on the back of the defence announcement, we are able to open a new potential segment around the defence industry, which I'll talk more about in a moment. So we are developing flavicide and undertaking the regulatory enabling studies at the moment. And we enter into broad-based partnerships with companies that have distribution and product development franchise arrangements across the world in each of those verticals. So I'd like to briefly just talk a little bit about the announcement relating to the two grants that were awarded, totaling 3 million Australian dollars from the US Department of Defense. This announcement generated a lot of excitement last week, and some of you may have watched ABC News with Alan Kohler, and we also rated a mention there in a number of other publications, which was great. This was a culmination of a hell of a lot of background work, and the exciting and relevant aspects for us not only is the grant funding, but the ability for us to tap into the defence sector as a new category of opportunity for flavicide and Q-side respectively. Conventionally, we've talked about agriculture, public health and consumer, but in fact, it turns out that the defence industry globally has major unmet needs around pest management and particularly mosquitoes and bedbugs in our case. So first of all, the first of the two grants relates to flavicide, and if you like, imagine a soldier in the field wearing a device on their body, a small device that is passively emanating flavicide into the immediate environment around the soldier, a wearable device that once activated continues to emanate flavicide for quite a long period of time. And perhaps worth noting that the US Department of Defense has around about 1.4 million uniformed personnel. So within the Department of Defense alone in the US, this represents a very significant opportunity for us in addition to other countries. So this particular program involves the combination of flavicide with an emanator device that a US company, Gear Jump Technologies, is an expert in. And we also bring in the expertise of a number of the collaborators in the US and Thailand, interesting particularly where it comes to testing against mosquitoes and other vector-borne diseases. So that particular program, as is the Q-side one, is slated for a 3-year period. And obviously it's an opportunity to accelerate the development of those products. We'll seek to do that. The current grant funding for this first emanator device is 1.6 million Australian, and those proceeds are then spread across Biogene and our collaborators. So the second grant obviously relates to QSide, and many years ago I had the very unfortunate experience of jumping into a bed in Sydney that hadn't been used for many months, and experiencing the terror of being bitten by a very large number of bed bugs. And if for those of you that haven't experienced that, it's an awful experience. So much so that the US Department of Defense recognized this as a major psychological source of trauma for deployed soldiers on occasion. So little wonder that this particular grant application has been successful. It involves the development of QSide as a residual formulation that can remain active within cracks and crevices over a long period of time, and to control not only actually bed bugs, but flies and a range of other crawling insects. This particular category has traditionally been served by the pyrethroid class of compounds, and a number of those use patterns are now no longer available to those listed products as a result of safety concerns. And in addition, resistance is a major challenge. It's been estimated that around about 11% of French homes have been infested by bed bugs. There's been over 60% increase in bed bug reporting in the UK in recent years, and in the upper east side of New York, there are bed bug infestation reports that accompany the changing of houses and flats. So it's becoming actually a really major issue, and the unmet need is very rapidly growing. In fact, from 2023 to 2033, the total global market's going to more than double. So this grant involves the formulation and testing of QSide, once again with the Walter Reed and the Centre for Medical and Agricultural Research within the Department of Defence, and totaling 1.4 million. So in an overall sense, the excitement from Biogene's perspective is certainly the ability to access this new sector of defence. These are certainly very exciting product concepts, and Biogene's flavicide and QSide are being recognised because they have new modes of action and are derived from nature. And there's a very strong push, as many of you will be aware, to move in that direction and away from synthetic chemistry. And the new modes of action presented by flavicide and QSide also represent new control opportunities against these pests. And so these grants are great validation for us, and really pleased to see the coverage last week from that news. On this slide, I'd just like to summarise and briefly touch on the other aspects covered in our 4C released last week for Q2 FY25. In terms of the development and regulatory development of flavicide, obviously our estimated timing for completion of our regulatory dossier and its submission is at the end of 2025 at this point in time. And so one of the key steps has been formally setting the specification for flavicide from a chemistry perspective, characterization of any batch-to-batch impurities, for example, and then defining that in a formal sense in the regulatory program, but also in the subsequent safety studies. And that's been a key step on the back of the success in the pilot scale program that we've previously announced with Rallis in India. So the scale up and chemistry and specification and analysis of our batches of flavicides been going particularly well, and that's really the foundation for the development of flavicide as a successful commercial product. And unfortunately, there are many of these products that don't see the light of day because they can't be characterized and they can't be scaled up consistently, reproducibly, and to a cost of goods that makes them competitive. The second aspect there is that we've initiated the GLP safety studies. There are a range of studies that the APVMA, the Australian regulator, confirmed that we need to undertake to support the registration of flavicide in Australia. And we've been undertaking the dietary and metabolism studies initially, and throughout the remainder of 2025, we have a very detailed program. We'll be having a very busy year of work leading up to finalisation of our dossier and its lodgement with the Australian regulator. And on the back of that filing, moving obviously into other territories such as the US, Brazil, etc., utilising the same data that's being generated to OECD standards. So you'll hear a lot more from us as a company over this coming 12-month period in terms of regulatory development. And this, we have commercial development arrangements, but at the end of the day, we need to have an approved product to sell and to supply to generate revenue. And this is a very core activity for us. The next aspect there on the right is really just a brief update. We've previously announced we're working with InView, which was previously Bayer's professional pest management group, and they were spun out in a private equity transaction a couple of years ago, and we're continuing to work with them and developing a range of formulations, specifically targeting mosquitoes in this case, and working with their mosquito and professional pest management groups to fully exploit the potential of flavicide in territories outside the US and Cayman Islands. And we continue to work with Clark Mosquito Control as our current licensee in the US and Cayman Islands. So if you like, InView and Clark are different sides of the same coin. So our other existing commercial collaborations are obviously continuing. We're continuing to work really hard with Evergreen Garden Care, both in the UK and here in Australia, and that's looking at both flavicide, the potential for use of flavicide and Q-side in various applications, and no doubt we'll have more to say about that in due course. And obviously, as many of you will be aware, STK has previously signed on to undertake the regulatory development of Q-side. So we've just recently completed our 13th harvest just prior to Christmas for the Q-side biomass and the oil extraction. We're very focused on two really key aspects. One is the efficient and cost-effective production of Q-side, and also preparation for the scale-up of the area based on the quality material that we've developed over the last 13 growing seasons. So it's important to remember that optimizing yield and biomass production and harvestability and tolerance to various fungal diseases is a very important aspect as a precursor to the scale-up of Q-side, and obviously results in a competitive cost of goods as well at the same time. So on the background there, the Q-side seed and seedling production program is being scaled up significantly. We've recently had a lot of success around grafting methodology that's been developed, which enables us essentially to move from a relatively small number of plants in the field into a very large scale quite rapidly. And we have the ability to expand the area under cultivation at the current site, in addition to engagement with additional growers who've traditionally been involved with tea tree oil production, which is a similar production system. So that's the summary of the 4C. I think for those of you new to Biogene, this slide really shows the continuum of where we are as a company in the development of flavicide and the development path. As I said, at the end of 2025, we have that first green star being the filing of our dossier. And at the moment, between 15 and 17 months is the average Australian regulatory approval time. It may be that we can be shorter than that, but at the moment, that for planning purposes is the estimated timing. And what we do as a company is develop the active compound flavicide and the development of that regulatory dossier, and our partners are involved in formulation of those into a format that is fit for purpose, whether it be in grain storage or mosquito control or consumer use. And so you have these parallel paths of development that happen at the same time. So in terms of looking forward, we have in the first category there the news flow that will come around the further development and regulatory development of both flavicide and Q-side, the enabling studies and the progress that we're making. With that, we have some very experienced international regulatory development advisors assisting us with those tasks, and there's a lot of attention to that and the timely delivery of that within our control. Secondly, current partners and expanded partnerships and new partnerships is a major focus for us. So perhaps in one sense, the US Department of Defense is a nascent new commercial partner for us on the back of which achieved success in these 2 grant programs. We have a ready-made market there and would certainly seek to optimise that in other territories that obviously have the same needs around vector control and bed bugs. But what we seek to do as a company is expand out those commercial partnerships, and we continue to seek to engage in companies, particularly with an interest in the grain storage area. We have what we believe is a very competitive offering there, and resistance is becoming a major challenge. What's very interesting in the partnering in the commercial space at the moment is there's a very rapid change impacting our major partners and their difficulty in terms of achieving registration, regulatory registration and approval for additional synthetic products. And that's creating a real indigestion within the industry, and many of those are now one way or another commercially and being effectively forced to look at the natural and biological category as a product category for their portfolio. So we are experiencing increasing interest from partners, and as we raise our profile with announcements such as last week, that will continue. And finally, our focus obviously on funding and additional support, grants and other opportunities to leverage shareholder equity is obviously a core objective for us, and obviously we'll in due course raise further capital to support the program. So I guess they're the 3 broad bundles of announcements that you'd expect to see over coming months and for the remainder of 2025. Thanks very much, Matt. That's the summary, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Tim. As you mentioned, we'll move on to the Q&A now. As a reminder to anyone in the audience, if you have a question you'd like to submit, please feel free to type it in within the function on Zoom and we'll get to it. Tim, the first question I have is, what is the schedule of payment of the DoD grant? Are there milestones required? Is it paid monthly or upfront? And is it paid on progress/milestones?
So broadly, the recipe for the grant is quarterly reimbursement against agreed program activities. Those program activities can be adjusted either forward or backwards in conjunction with the DoD. But yes, it's a reimbursement arrangement, and the funds that flow to DoD agencies, some of whom were listed there, is paid directly by the DoD to those institutions. And doesn't come through our books, so that simplifies the grant arrangements. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you provide an update on STK regarding progress on registration of QSide, and when is the registration expected for this?
Sure. So we've previously announced STK has taken on the regulatory enabling development and studies associated with the development of a data pack for Australia, the US and other countries. We haven't announced a timetable, and in due course we'll provide an update to the market on that. We would obviously need to do that in conjunction with STK. So perhaps a broader comment on that aspect, particularly for new shareholders. We have obviously this partnering model, and obviously there are a number of reasons why we can update the market on various aspects of those, commercial and confidence and the prior agreements. So we take the opportunity to do that whenever possible, but as you'll appreciate, there are a number of things that need to remain under the confidentiality banner for the moment.
Thank you. And following on from that question, what is the latest regarding the retail opportunity provided in the agreement with STK?
The retail opportunity. I'm not sure I understand the question, but if I extrapolate the supply of retail products emanating from involving QSide, certainly it's a category of opportunity as it would be for effectively consumer agriculture, grain storage, etc. So yeah, that that just sits alongside the other categories of opportunity. There's nothing particularly related to consumer and retail.
Thank you. And one that might assist for, as you say, some of the newer shareholders, but can you just talk to the pathway to first revenues from the sale of pesticides? That's another question that's come through.
Sure. This is a question that comes up frequently, and perhaps the development path for flavicide and fungicide is somewhat unusual, somewhat similar to a biotech company. What we have with BioGene is the ability to generate upfront payments from sign-on payments effectively from our commercial partners when we announce those deals. Secondly, milestone payments upon achievement of pre-agreed development programs or annual or timed payments. And thirdly, royalties on the sale of those products. And the largest category of revenue then would obviously apply upon sales being achieved. But the fourth category that's quite unusual that applies to BioGene is that we own the scale-up synthesis methodology for the production of flavicide. So for our flavicide agreements, we have the ability to also generate a modest margin on the supply of flavicide from that centralized source to each of our commercial partners. So perhaps in simple terms, there are 4 different potential revenue streams, and the largest being royalties and obviously the margin on the supply of active, but don't discount the upfront and milestone payments being significant in the scheme of our expenditure levels.
Thanks for that, Tim. There's no further questions in the queue, so I'll just throw it back to you to provide a closing comment.
Thanks very much, Matt. And really the purpose of today was to emphasise the relevance of the recent news, particularly the DoD, but also to provide an update on where we are with the development of flavicide and the regulatory enabling program and our relevant partnerships. So we'll see a lot more news flow over the remainder of 2025 relating to each of those areas, and really appreciate the support of our shareholders and obviously our new shareholders that have recently joined us. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks to everyone for joining.